The overlock machine is a complement to the normal household machines. It cuts and wraps the edge of the fabric at the same time. It also sews fast, almost twice as fast as a regular machine. It feeds all fabrics evenly, but you have to use a regular machine when sewing straight stitches, zigzag, buttonholes and zippers. It is important that you use good thread in the overlock, but you don't always have to use these big spools of thread. You can also use regular spools of thread. You don't have to have the same color even. As in this case, I can sew in gray fabric. When you thread, it's important that you have a telescopic stand and that you follow the thread in all the thread guides so that the thread tension can be good. On most machines there is a threading schedule that you can follow, and then you just follow the colors that are marked out all of the threaders and hooks. On this machine you have to start by threading the second thread from the right so that the threading is correct. It is where it is difficult to reach, you use tweezers. After that I take the first thread from the right and follow the threading schedule. Here I can also use a lever that helps to simplify. Remember to put the lever back once all the threads are collected under the presser foot. And they should also be about 10 centimeters long under the presser foot. Now I continue with the third thread from the right, and it should follow the threads to the right all the way down and through the right needle. And the left thread goes to the left in all the threads straight into the left needle. It is important that the needles are not damaged in the overlock, so you have to replace them at regular intervals. You can use normal sewing machine needles. On this machine there is a display as a guide on how to make the settings. On this machine I can get the right thread tension and so on. On this button I choose which one I want, and here I can set the fabric that I'm sewing in. Once I've done that, I can see all the settings that I need. Here I can choose how far out the tongue should sit if I'm going to do a rolled hem or a normal. And here is how wide the seam allowance should be. And here on the side is the speed determiner. And the lever for the presser foot. Here is the hand wheel, and on this one I can decide if the feeders should stretch the fabric or gather the fabric. And this is for the stitch length. In here there are a free arm that can be good to have if you're going to sew, for example, sleeve cuffs. When you want to change the color of the thread, it can be a pain to thread the whole machine again. And instead you can cut off the thread and tie the threads together. You might want to tie the threads together with a sailor's knot. You start with a regular knot and pull out the threads, so if you see the blue thread always runs over the white thread, then it should do so also on the next knot that you make at the thread's end. You just pull the threads in this way and then you cut off the excess thread. Make sure that you have the presser foot up and gently pull the threads until the new color has gone through. I'm going to show you a few settings and I'm going to sew a skirt. Set the machine on flat lock and the fabric that I'm sewing in, which is a thin jersey fabric, and follow the settings. After that, I just take away the needle and I mark lines in the fabric that I'm going to sew in. Fold the fabric according to the line, and now I'm going to change the presser foot so I can protect against the knife. So I'm going to make a flat lock and I am sewing with the folded edge close to this presser foot's edge. The seam should look quite loosely outside of the folded edge. Once you have sewn, you can stretch the fabric and you can either have it this way or on the other side it looks like this. Now I'm going to try a rolled hem. So I use the settings recommended and then I turn the lever for the tongue to R and I've changed back to regular presser foot. When you sew, you might want to stretch the fabric a little bit so you get a wavy edge on the fabric. Now I'm going to sew a gathered ruffle on to my skirt, and I set on a regular overlock seam, and I have right sides together, but I change the differential gauge to gather the fabric. So now when I sew, I'm going to stretch the upper fabric a little bit and the feeders are going to gather the under fabric. So you will get a ruffle. Now I cut a fairly wide elastic and I cut it so it fits the waist, and then I just lay it right sides together. I'm going to pin it in the center of the front, and the seam is going to be in the center of the back. I am also using the presser foot that protects from the knife. I am stretching the elastic at the same time as I sew, all the way around. Now I'm going to turn the elastic to the wrong side, and then I'm going to fold the fabric around the elastic, and I'm going to sew here with a flat lock. So I change the settings once again. And as you can see, I am stretching the elastic when I sew this seam too. And once you have done this, you get a nice looking waistline. Then I turn the skirt right sides together, and I'm going to sew the back seam. I'm going to sew with a regular overlock seam with 4 threads. When your overlock seam isn't going to be crossed with another seam, you have to back stitch, and you can do that in different ways, but I try to sew twice, at the start and at the end. So you can't back stitch with this machine. You just have to sew twice at the same place. And once you have done this seam, your skirt is finished. Please go to my Patreon. There you will find measurements for this skirt, which is suited for a child. You always have to clean your machines, and you can use a small brush and clean wherever you can get your hands on. You can also use a vacuum cleaner. If you want your threading to be in place, you need to hold them straight. And as you can see, there are some levers here that will help you get any garbage away. Remember to return the leverage when you have cleaned your machine. You should also put some oil on any moving parts. You can use the hand wheel to see where you should put the oil.